Hey guys, Chad here from Take It or Leave It, here with a movie review for you for the film Iron Lung. Here's the synopsis. In a post-apocalyptic future after the Quiet Rapture event, a convict explores a blood ocean on a desolate moon using a submarine called the Iron Lung. Alright, with that down, let's get into just a little bit of background and a couple disclaimers before getting into the review. As you probably already know, this is a passion project for a YouTuber called Markiplier. He's a YouTube gamer, and Iron Lung is a game that he played on his channel a few years back, and I guess it had such an impact on him that he decided to make a movie about it. And when I say he decided to make a movie about this, I mean he, because he did most of the heavy lifting. This is, I guess, self-funded, and he wrote and directed and edited this movie, and he also starred in the film. Alright, that's the background. Here are the disclaimers I mentioned. Prior to seeing this movie, I did not know who Markiplier was. I could not have picked him out in a lineup of YouTubers, so I had no allegiance toward Markiplier, and I never heard of the game Iron Lung, let alone played it myself. That being said, I did read the synopsis for this film before seeing it, and it intrigued me enough to look into some of the higher level, kind of surface level lore for the video game. So that's where my head was prior to seeing this movie. Alright, and with all of that down, let's get into the pros and the cons, starting with the pros. Well, I said it about The Silent Planet from last year, and now I'm gonna say it about Iron Lung. This is lo-fi sci-fi at its absolute finest. One location, basically one actor, and a budget-friendly, less is more approach that tease our imagination up to run absolutely wild. And the result of all of this is cosmic horror nightmare fuel that I personally loved so much that I went into the ice and the snow a second time on Saturday night to see this thing again. But one of the things that brought me back for a second viewing was the mystery, the lore, and the world building in this film. There's a lot going on in this movie, and there's a number of scenes that if you blink, you'll miss it. More on this later when we get into the cons. But whatever issues I might have had picking up some of these things the first time, the point is that the mystery, the lore, and the world building that was done had intrigued and fascinated me so much that I was more than willing to go back for a second viewing to pick up all this stuff I might have missed. And in defense of this movie, I caught a ton of stuff on the second viewing that helped to piece all of this film together for me. But yeah, when you're touching on cosmic horror and you've got seriously intriguing mystery and lore and mythology that you're working with, that's a devastating two-punch combo for a film, and it had me hook, line, and sinker. But on top of the cosmic horror and the mystery, there's also a ton of genuine dread and suspense developed throughout this film, thanks in big part to a fantastic musical score. And one thing that I love about this movie is that all of the budget is seen in the film, in camera, for the most part. In particular, I'm talking about the Iron Lung itself. In my opinion, the art direction and production design teams need to be heavily commended for this, because not only did they make something that looked very tangible and felt like if you touched the walls you would stick to it, but they made something that was functional and sturdy enough to actually move around and throw Markiplier around and bang into without breaking or looking fake. And I don't envy the challenge that the cinematographer had on this film, because the entirety, or at least 99% of this film, takes place in a metal box, which can be tough to make look interesting. But I thought the cinematographer did a fantastic job. There's a ton of close-up shots that I thought were rather stunning and helped to bring this metal box, this little world, to life. And I really felt like the cinematographer shot from every single vantage point imaginable in this box. So despite being one isolated location, the film never looked or felt stale. It always felt fresh because there was no angle or vantage point unexplored. And you got to applaud them for using a lot of practical effects. I heard somewhere that maybe this film set the record for most blood used in a film. And if if that's true, then hats off to them for actually going that far with tangible liquid blood. Somebody needs to check on Eli Roth because he will not be happy to hear this news. I also felt that the sound editor and sound mixer need to be applauded for their efforts because there's a lot of sound going on in this film, especially toward the end. And that sound is so vital to the rising tension and white knuckle nature of the climax. And lastly, there's Markiplier's performance. And I gotta say, I thought he did a pretty damn good job. Granted, I had never seen him before to my knowledge, so it was a lot easier to look at him as a blank slate and kind of just give him an unbiased chance. But yeah, this is a ridiculously hard ask that he's asking of himself. And do I think it's an Oscar-worthy performance? No, not at all. But do I think it was an absolutely serviceable performance for this film? Yeah, 100%. But now it's time to get to some of the issues that I had with the film. The first being what I touched on earlier in the pros, which is that this film is arguably ambiguous to a fault. It comes as no surprise to hear that a lot of people have had issues with this film because they went into this with no knowledge about the game or the lore, and then found that this film was very hard to follow. That's part of the reason why I wanted to give some of the disclaimers that I gave, because I had a bit of a head start going into this film, and even I found it hard to follow some of the things going on with the film, in particular what Eden was all about. Another issue that I had that kind of stems from the ambiguity problem is the fact that this film is pretty damn long, and considering its length, I felt like the film should have been more clear. Like, it feels like there's enough runtime here to cover all of this stuff. You know, an hour and 25 minutes? Maybe not. 2 hours and 7 minutes? Yeah, you definitely got enough runway there. And lastly, there are some technical issues that are noticeable throughout the film. In particular, the ADR in some scenes is quite noticeable and even distracting at times. Sometimes the CGI looks really good, and then there are some times where it looks a little Sci-Fi Channel-esque. There's a scene where Markiplier is banging on the window, and it's just clear that that window is the one aspect of the set that cannot be touched in that way. And in the climax of the film, there is some shaky cam going on that would give any found footage film a run for its money. This film definitely has elements of Event Horizon, 1408, Ash, The Void, Cloverfield Paradox, Sunshine, and The Final Voyage. In particular, I want to mention The Final Voyage. If you haven't seen that movie, I think it's a German film. It's really, really good. It came out in like 2018. It's a lo-fi sci-fi odyssey in space. Check it out if it sounds interesting. Yeah, guys, I was shocked when I came out of this film the first time, but even more surprised the second time I came out of the film, because the second viewing actually validated all of my feelings that I had coming out of my first viewing. I'm definitely not going to sit here and say this is a perfect film, this is the next 2001 A Space Odyssey, but is this a very successful lo-fi sci-fi film with a less is more approach that serves as some serious cosmic horror nightmare fuel? And the answer to me is unequivocally yes. And the fact that I'm planning on seeing this film for a third time this week before it leaves theaters tells me that yeah, I kind of freaking love this movie. And in so many ways, it feels like it was made for me based on the kind of movies that I like. And any flaws that this film has, which it definitely has several, they are outweighed and overwhelmed by the strengths of this little indie project that could, in my opinion. And I gotta give Iron Lung an 8.8 out of 10. But those are just my thoughts, take it or leave it. What do you guys think? Have you seen this movie yet? Are you a fan of Markiplier's? Were you surprised like I was, or do you think it's a piece of shit? Let me know down in the comment section. Let's talk about it. And if you enjoyed this video, but you want more information about what's on my watch list, what I'm currently watching, the kind of ratings I'm giving these films, as well as upcoming releases I'm looking forward to, don't forget to follow me on track.tv. My username is TIOLI_reviews. The link is in the description box. Go ahead and click it and start following me on Tracked, and I look forward to seeing you over there. And as usual, guys, thank you so much for stopping by my channel. I really appreciate it. Don't be afraid to hit that like and subscribe button. And until next time, I'm Chad from Take It or Leave It, and I'll check you later.
Check you later. Check you later. Hey, man, you off my case. Oh, man. Chicks don't want to hear that shit.